Hey everyone, it's Tony Leonardi, your certified financial planning professional from Newtown, Connecticut. And welcome back to another episode of A Smarter Way to Retire, because there really is a smarter way to retire. Happy New Year, everyone. It's January 9th when this is released, 2026. This is actually episode number 50 of A Smarter Way to Retire. Woohoo! Thanks to everyone who's been listening and watching and interacting. Next stop, episode 100. Fingers crossed. This week we're going to build on last week's episode, deep dive into Monte Carlo simulations and your probability of success number. Just when you thought Monte Carlo couldn't get any more exciting, we're going to kick it up a notch. Today we're going to take your retirement plan one step further to explore how Monte Carlo simulations can help us find the right portfolio allocation for your unique situation, the one that gives you the highest odds of success without unnecessary risk. And isn't that exactly what we're all searching for? How to invest my hard-earned savings, my nest egg, so that I have a high probability of success, meaning that I won't run out of money before running out of life without taking on unnecessary risk. Sounds magical, doesn't it? Well, it's not really magic, it's just math. So how do we do it? Great question. By the end of this episode, you'll understand exactly how we do this and the surprising trade-off between safe and aggressive portfolios, why average return isn't the whole story, and how to spot if your current investments are inefficient or efficient. We'll also tease next week's topic a little bit, modern portfolio theory and efficient frontier. So let's get into it. I want you to meet client David, who I started working with recently. He's 64, has about 1.6 million in his portfolio, plans on retiring in 2 years. He came in to see me with a do-it-yourself portfolio mix, mostly stocks, some bonds, a little bit of cash. He had an average return projection of about 7%. Everything looked pretty great on paper. We ran his Monte Carlo simulation, and his probability of success came back at 72%. Not bad, but not great. Room for improvement. Of course, David thought that his probability of success would be much higher. Based on his calculations, he said, well, I have an average return of 7%. I can take out 4%. That leaves 3% for inflation. I should never run out of money. As you know, because you've been listening to this podcast, average return is nice. It's a nice place to start, but the world doesn't work in a straight line. The world is volatile. The markets are volatile. And you have to consider the effect of that volatility on your financial plan. Simple calculations like the one David ran don't address volatility, and that's where many of these plans fall short. So we compared his portfolio to 7 model portfolios in our planning software, ranging from principal stability, which is the most conservative model, mostly bonds and low risk, all the way up through aggressive growth, mostly stocks and high risk. David's portfolio landed in the middle around the moderate growth risk category. We'll put that at about a 7 out of 10 on the risk scale. But what was interesting is that he had a lower probability of success than our model for the same risk level. Well, why is that? His portfolio was inefficient, too concentrated in a few stocks, a few sectors, tech, the Mag 7, like a lot of portfolios today. Not enough diversification and higher volatility than what was necessary for the return that he was shooting for. So let's think about this for a second. What is investing? Seems like a simple question, right? But if I asked you in your mind, what is investing? How would you answer that question? I'll give you a moment to think about it. To me, investing is the intentional purchase of risk. You decide how much risk you're willing to purchase, and you hope that you're adequately compensated for the purchase of that risk. Simple definition of investing. Does that make sense to you? You're purchasing a certain amount of risk and hoping to be compensated for the risk that you're purchasing. Now, if I ask you a follow-up question such as, how much risk have you purchased in your investment portfolio? Can you quantify that for me? How would you answer that question? Well, I've asked that question to prospective investors hundreds of times, maybe thousands. And here's the answer that I usually get in return. Well, a moderate amount of risk, I think, or hopefully not too much risk. I don't like risk, or some kind of generic answer like that. The average investor really has no idea how to quantify the risk that they've purchased. So the obvious follow-up to that question is, how do you measure the success of your investments if you can't quantify how much risk you've purchased? If you've purchased risk up here at your eyeball level and your return is down here at chin level, is that a successful portfolio? Is that an efficient portfolio? Is that the kind of portfolio that you want to take into retirement? Probably not. Next week, we'll get into all the details about how we measure risk and relate that to return to see if you have an efficient portfolio. But for today's discussion, let's just keep in mind that most portfolios that we see are initially inefficient and take on more risk, more volatility than they need to. So let's go back to David. We tweaked his portfolio slightly, making it more efficient. Same risk level, better allocation. His probability of success jumped from 72% to 88%. That's the power of using Monte Carlo, not just to test your plan's probability of success, but to find the portfolio that maximizes your odds of success. See, in our financial planning software, we have a tool called the Risk Reward Module. It takes your exact plan, your assets, your income, expenses, taxes, life expectancy, etc., all of your variables, and runs a Monte Carlo simulation on your current portfolio and compares that to 7 model portfolios. The model portfolios are, number 1, principal stability. It's the most conservative, mostly cash and bonds, very low volatility. 2, conservative income. 3, income and growth. 4, balanced growth. 5, growth and income. 6, growth, and 7, aggressive growth, mostly stocks, high volatility. For each model, as well as your current allocation, we calculate 2 key numbers. Probability of success, the percent chance your money will last as long as you do, given average return over time and the volatility of that return, and safety margin. How much extra money will be left in your plan, projected at the end of your life, if you end up with the median scenario. That's safety margin. So this lets us see the trade-off visually in chart format, and it's often very surprising. And here's the big aha most people miss. As portfolios get more aggressive or higher average return, what do you think happens? The probability of success often drops. That's right. So let me repeat that. As portfolios get more aggressive, higher average return, probability of success often drops, and sometimes significantly, even though the long-term average return is higher. Well, why? That doesn't make sense. Well, it's all about volatility. A conservative portfolio might have a 5 to 7% average return with low standard deviation or small swings. Monte Carlo shows high probability of success, let's say 90%, because it's reliable. Fewer bad sequences that start that snowball effect that we've talked about so many times before. An aggressive portfolio with a higher average return, 8 to 10%, will also have a higher standard deviation or bigger swings. The probability of success drops to 70% because of the possibility of early volatility and how that can devastate your withdrawals. I don't really care what your average return is projected to be over time if you run out of money in 15 years because you got caught up in one of these snowballs. But here's the flip side. Aggressive portfolios usually have a higher safety margin. So in the good scenarios or strong markets early on, you could end up with a lot more money at the ends. So the choice is yours. Do you want a higher probability of success? I want to be 95% sure that I don't run out of money while I'm alive. Or do you want a high safety margin, which is more aggressive? If things go well, I want to leave a bigger legacy for my family. Or maybe I want to take more trips. I want to live a little bit higher. Well, if things go well, that's the operative language, if things go well. Most clients tend to lean towards higher probability of success versus higher safety margin. What's the point in shooting for more money to leave to my kids if I run out of money because of bad market timing? Makes sense, right? I'm going to show you a chart of one recent client I've been working with. You can see that his current portfolio allocation has him at an 80% probability of success. Not bad at all. But if we reallocated his investment slightly more conservative and more efficiently, his probability of success shoots up by 10% to 88%. Interesting, right? More conservative and more efficient increases probability of success dramatically. Not chasing stocks or chasing returns, being more efficient and smarter with his investments. That's one of the reasons why we say there is a smarter way to retire. But notice as he gets more aggressive, his probability of success can go up to as high as 85% in our model. But that's not due to being more aggressive, that's due to being more efficient or having a better allocation than he has now. But as he gets more and more aggressive, chasing higher returns, you can see that his probability of success starts to go down, with his lowest projected probability of success being in the most aggressive portfolio at 76%. That's why we say average returns over time don't really matter as much in retirement as controlling volatility. Many portfolios that I review are inefficient. They have the same risk level as one of our model portfolios, but lower probability of success. So why is that? They're too concentrated. Sometimes we see 30% or more in one stock or in one industry. Wrong mix, high volatility funds without enough bonds. I compare inefficient portfolios to a bad recipe in the kitchen because I like to cook. If you don't have the right mix of ingredients with the proper amounts of each ingredient, how will your meal turn out? Probably not very well. Same with investments. You need the right ingredients and the right amount of each ingredient in order to make it delicious. This is where modern portfolio theory and efficient frontier come in. It's the idea that for every level of risk, there is an optimal mix of assets that gives you the highest expected return. We'll do a full deep dive into that theory next week. But for now, know this. An inefficient portfolio can cost you 5 to 10% probability of success without you even knowing it. So here are the steps that we take with each and every client. We run your base Monte Carlo simulation based on your current portfolio to see where you stand. We compare your current portfolio to the 7 model portfolios to see where you land on the risk-reward spectrum. Stress test for sequence of returns risk. What if volatility hits early? Then adjust your portfolio based on your goals, high probability of success or high safety margin. And rerun this analysis annually. Markets change, and so does your optimal mix. One couple came in with a 68% probability with an aggressive portfolio. We shifted them to a more efficient, moderate growth portfolio. Probability jumped to 92%. Safety margin stayed pretty strong. And they slept better at night. Now, isn't that what this is all about? Sleeping well at night. So if you're wondering, is my portfolio efficient? What's my real probability of success? Don't guess at it. There are 2 easy ways to get those numbers. Take my free 2-minute retirement readiness quiz, and you'll get a score right away and a copy of my book instantly. You can find that on my website, leonardifamilywealthcare.com/quiz, or you can book a complimentary 15-minute call with me. I'll run your Monte Carlo probability of success numbers and your risk reward with your real numbers. You can find my calendar on my website, leonardifamilywealthcare.com. Look for my contact and Calendly sections. Next week, we'll dive into efficient frontier and modern portfolio theory. You're going to love that. Thanks for listening. Remember to plan smart and retire happier, because there is a smarter way to retire. We'll see you next week.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth. The opinions expressed herein are for general information only and is not necessarily the opinions of Osaic Wealth or its representatives. Investing is subject to risk, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. It is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Please consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation.